Hey, it's Larry. Thanks for listening. Happy New Year. Real quick, before we get into this episode, I had such an amazing, eye-opening, life-changing experience at the World Parkinson Congress in Kyoto that I want others to have that opportunity too. So Becca Miller and I and 24 of our PD community friends have launched a year-long WPC travel grant fundraiser. We're each doing a 2-week Facebook fundraiser. Mine's underway right now because my birthday's January 9th. All the money raised will be used to help offset travel costs so more people with young onset Parkinson's can attend the next WPC in Barcelona in 2022. You can search out details on the When Life Gives You Parkinson's Facebook page or donate directly to the WPC website. Go to WPC2022.org/YOPD fund. If you or your business would like to supply matching funds, hey, good on ya. Email me at parkinsonspod@curiouscast.ca. And now, on with the show. Hi, I'm Larry Gifford. I have Parkinson's disease, but I'm kind of excited because I'm going to the World Parkinson Congress. This is WPC 2019, the official podcast for the 5th World Parkinson Congress. The event is being held June 4th through 7th, 2019 in Kyoto, Japan. This podcast is created in collaboration with World Parkinson Coalition and my other podcast, When Life Gives You Parkinson's. First off, it's April, so happy Parkinson's Awareness Month. Sharing stories, whether it's me sharing my story or you sharing yours or anybody sharing their Parkinson's story, is extremely important as we go about making new treatments and the search for cures a priority. Without people with Parkinson's being willing to share their experiences, the good, the bad, the ugly, we'll never reach enough people to raise enough money to do enough research to end this disease. So, a heartfelt thank you to you and everyone who is sharing their stories this month and around the calendar year, whether it's sharing with family and friends, whether it's a small Facebook community, or if you're speaking at an event with 500 or 1,000 people. It's all really, really important. Each episode on WPC 2019, we will explore some of the topics that will be addressed and chat with some of the speakers that are lined up for this year's WPC. Today, we start with David Sangster. David is an ambassador to WPC 2019 in Kyoto. He's from the UK. He was diagnosed 8 years ago. As this podcast is released on April 3rd, David is in surgery. He's having DBS, deep brain stimulation. Electrodes are being implanted in certain areas of his brain. These electrodes will produce electrical impulses that regulate abnormal impulses and can also affect certain cells and chemicals within his brain. I was fortunate to catch up with David on Skype just a few weeks ago. He was in a busy cafe in London having hot cocoa. He tells me he had just slipped off the street to take some more meds and was dyskinetic, which caused him to speak at a very rapid pace. Are you nervous?
No.
What are you feeling?
No, I'm not. I'm just feeling ready for it, I think.
Okay.
The way I do it for now, I just feel ready for it. I know the risks. When I first researched it, it was quite a scary thought. But if I look at my children and think about the surgery, it upsets me now. But if I think about the benefits they'll get, anyway, it's worth it because I could have I could be looking to have another condition and be forced to have the treatment where this is a choice. But less of a choice after 8 years, I assure you. But anybody listening out to this podcast, I shouldn't worry too much about 8 years and feel a lot of David Sangster because you probably won't. But everybody's different, they get so sort of mixed, don't they? So.
Hey, people can see what you look like on YouTube because you've done this series of video journals. What prompted you to do those?
Originally, when I first got diagnosed, before I got diagnosed, how did you look into the disease? Though? Did you YouTube it? Did you Google it? When you first started showing symptoms,
sure.
What did you do? Yeah. Well, that was me. So I started Googling it and researching, and I thought, well, as soon as I got diagnosed, I just kind of went in my shell and I just looked at videos of Michael J. Fox quite a lot and kind of tried to track his symptoms almost. Because I think you do a lot of comparison, don't you?
They tell you not to.
It's not really
you have to.
It's not the way to go, is it? Because I think you realise it's everything's different, aren't they? So. But you don't realise that at the time. You don't get much experience of Parkinson's. You just think it's just Parkinson's, don't you? Like same size fits all, but it's really not like that at all, is it? So
have you had good feedback from the videos?
We have had some nice feedback, and it just started off as an exercise in just kind of like logging it, kind of like documenting it for myself, and then I realised it helped other people, and there was some really good feedback. If it wasn't for the feedback of the community, I wouldn't carry on doing it. I think because I think I've covered everything now, but I'm just on the last of my 3 videos for the DBS. I've deliberately kept the last one back until now. So I'm just actually busy editing. At the minute, it's going to be quite a long one, just trying to show the full process, and hopefully there'll be a part 4 where I show the after effects, because I think it's important to become. I've advocated the benefits of the community and engagement and being part of something bigger, which is meeting people like you. But I think without reaching out, you don't. I think if I'd not reached out and developed a voice for the condition, I think I would be worse off than I am now. It's definitely a therapy for free, I think, talking to people like this.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I feel it. I mean, because you build this community around the world, and people are thinking about you, and they reach out and they say, "Hey, how you doing?" Yeah. It's amazing.
But it's good to see people like you coming through as well. They were really good at the tech and the speech as well. And hope that lasts a long time, because
me too.
You're doing a really good job, Larry.
Well, thank you. I feel like I should do it now while I can, because you just never know.
That positive thought's making my toes tingle, so let's keep talking. Meds are kicking in. So.
A question for you. One of the things that's going to happen here in a couple of months is kind of a big coming out party for you. After your DBS, you'll be at the World Parkinson Congress.
Just about. It's just about, hopefully.
Yeah, so what are you looking forward to in Kyoto?
It's just the coming together of all the people with Parkinson's, and scientists and researchers and all those different people involved in the charities. Just a big coming together. But I'll tell you what, the best thing about it is when you're there, it's like everybody's in the same boat, symptomatic wise. So you can all just shake away. That's the best bit about it. It's such a relief to see everybody walking the streets with symptoms. Even though they don't want to feel like that, but not feeling like there's any stigma or any embarrassment. Or
hey, David, thanks so much for giving me a shout, and I look forward to seeing you in Kyoto, and I wish you all the best of success with this surgery. I'll be thinking of you and sending you good vibes.
Take care, friend. I'll see you in Kyoto.
All right, take care. Dr. Simon Stott is Deputy Director of Research at the Cure Parkinson's Trust. His website, scienceofparkinsons.com, is awesome. It's plain English information about the research conducted on Parkinson's. Simon, how did you first get involved with Parkinson's research?
So I'm originally from New Zealand, and there was a small biotech company in New Zealand called Neurons. They thought they were very cute because they had NZ on the end of the name. The folks across the road at Auckland Medical School affectionately called us morons with NZ on the end. But it was while I was working at Morons that the company was trying to take a small molecule through the FDA clinical trial process for Parkinson's and other neurodegenerative conditions. And to my mind, Parkinson's was the easiest problem to solve.
So what year was that?
My goodness, it's 15 years ago now.
So what would you say was the state of research as it relates to Parkinson's back then?
That's a fascinating question. When you look at the history of Parkinson's, the last 200 years, it's only in the last 20 years that 80% of the research has actually been done. And it really stems from the genetics, the explosion in genetics. In 1998, we had 1997, we had the first genetic risk factor associated with Parkinson's. 1998, we had the second. And it's these risk factors that have told us a bit about the biology of Parkinson's. And models and theories have built up around these biological pathways. It's been an amazing period of time for Parkinson's research the last 20 years.
Do you feel that that's continuing today into 2019?
Hugely, yeah, absolutely. When you look back, when I first got into Parkinson's research, there was 1 or 2 clinical trials that were looking at disease modification for Parkinson's, that is, trying to slow, stop, or reverse the condition. And now there's just dozens and dozens of clinical trials taking all sorts of approaches. I'm always very wary of getting too excited. I get very excited about the research, and I'm always very wary about expressing that too much because I don't want to raise people's expectations. And there's never a good time to have Parkinson's, but now is the most dynamic time for Parkinson's research. So it's hugely exciting for people in the research field.
Yeah, on the website, I've noticed you tend to warn people against the dangers of high expectations. Why is that?
2 reasons. Number one, people going into clinical trials, you don't want them to be having high expectations because that potentially brings on what's called the placebo effect. If they're on the control group, that is the group that's not getting the treatment, and they're blind to that, they can easily start to think that they're having beneficial effects. So you don't want people to be going into a clinical trial with high expectations. And also, the terrible truth of the matter is that about 95% of everything that's gone into clinical trials thus far has failed. So the best and the most prudent approach to any sort of clinical trial process is to simply go into it thinking that whatever you're testing is going to fail. I myself have basically developed a cup is completely empty kind of mentality to it. So that way I don't expect anything to happen. But if anything does happen, it's just magic. It's spectacular.
So putting all of our expectations aside, are we closer to a cure today than we were 15 years ago?
Oh, that's a question I hate to get. People are always asking folks in the research community how much more time, and the answer is usually 5 more years.
Always 5 years away.
Yeah, there's a couple of clinical trials that are kicking off very shortly. These are phase 3 trials, so they are sort of the final step, the final hurdle for a treatment. And if those are successful, and it's a big if, then potentially in 3 or 4 years we get the results, and that becomes clinically available. I'm always very reluctant to answer this question.
Well, and on the website, I read that for any cure for Parkinson's, there's going to require 3 core components.
Yes.
Can you list those for us?
Yeah, absolutely. The first component is simply something, disease-halting mechanism, something that's going to slow or stop the condition in its tracks. Parkinson's is a progressive condition, and what we need to do firstly is just to stop it from progressing. The second component is some sort of neuroprotective treatment, something that is going to nurture and rejuvenate the remaining cells and protect them, and also provide a nurturing environment for the third component, which is some form of cell replacement therapy. And this equation is going to differ from person to person, because if you've just been diagnosed with Parkinson's, your curative therapy could potentially just be a disease-halting mechanism and a bit of neuroprotective treatment. You may not necessarily need the cell replacement therapy. But if you've had the condition for 10 or 15 years, then you're probably going to need some of those cells replaced.
Yeah.
Parkinson's, you lose, is a neurodegenerative condition, and that means that you're losing cells in the brain, but it's specific populations of cells. And the one we classically refer to are the dopamine-producing cells, dopamine being this chemical that the brain produces. And by the time you're diagnosed with Parkinson's, you've lost about 50% of those dopamine neurons. And so the longer you have the condition, the more the necessity to actually replace some of those dopamine neurons to take up that lost function.
Yeah, that's why I keep getting increases in my levodopa.
Yes, exactly. Levodopa is a precursor or an ingredient in the production of dopamine. And as we lose the dopamine neurons, we increase the amount of dopamine, so to help the brain produce more dopamine.
So 15 years ago, you got into Parkinson's because you thought it was going to be an easier problem to solve. You still feeling that way?
I think we're closer to an answer now than we were before.
Good.
But I think I was naive in the initial approach, in that I was thinking of Parkinson's as a singular condition, and now it's very evident that it's basically a combination of different conditions, but they all have the same appearance. Oh. And you can see this when you go along to your local support group. Just the variability between individuals with the condition. Some are very tremor dominant, some have got more rigidity issues. And then in the non-motor function issues, some have sleep disturbance, some have gastrointestinal problems, some have loss of smell. It varies so widely.
It's crazy. There's like 40 some symptoms you could have.
Exactly. And so I'm really in the school now of, we're not dealing with just one specific condition, but maybe a host of conditions, but they all sort of have this same basic appearance.
Well, World Parkinson Congress coming up in June in Kyoto. You're going to be there.
Yes, very excited.
I look forward to seeing you there. Your roundtable is called Planet Patient versus Planet Researcher. What should people
Yes.
expect if they sit down with you?
Blood sport. No, we this roundtable basically stemmed from a series of posts that were on the internet, where a member of the community wrote a letter to Planet Researcher to tell them about life on planet Parkinson's. And I read this. It's a fantastic post, and I just decided to write a response, because I think a lot of people in the Parkinson's research community have never actually met someone with Parkinson's. They're doing all this research on this condition, so it's interesting for them to read a post like that and get the perspective of somebody living with the condition. But I also suspect a lot of people living with the condition have never actually met a Parkinson's researcher. So I wrote this post as a response, and someone somewhere obviously liked it. And so other people have added to this conversation as well, I should add. And it's given rise to this idea of having this roundtable. So I'm very curious to see.
Well, it's really a microcosm of what the conference is all about. It's bringing those two sides together so we can help each other.
It's a beautiful idea.
So you talk about you wanting to find where patients and researchers can align instead of collide. Where are we colliding today?
I think at the moment it's more a case of where are we aligning.
Okay.
That I can think of examples. There's a lot of positive vibes out there, and so much of the energy on the research side, and so many of the ideas now as well, are coming from the actual Parkinson's community. There's a lady up in Scotland, for example, Joy Milne, and she was brave enough to stand up at a local support group and say, "I can smell Parkinson's." And the researcher, Tila Kunath, who was presenting to the group on that day, he must have thought he was dealing with a bit of a crazy individual, but to his credit, he went away and asked some of his colleagues about this idea of maybe smelling Parkinson's, and it's now given rise to this to a whole new field of research that could provide us with biomarkers for early detection of Parkinson's. I know that there are dogs being trained to smell it. We also have groups in the Parkinson's community are organizing conferences that they think are on very important topics for folks in the Parkinson's community. For example, there's the Parkinson's Eve conference coming up very shortly on the 10th of April, which is a conference by women with Parkinson's for women with Parkinson's. And women with only make up about 40% of the population with Parkinson's. They have different needs and different issues to men, and there is a bit of a disparity in the research being conducted. I'm struggling to think of where the community is clashing. One possibility is with regards to clinical trials. Researchers have to be very careful in the running and the organization of a clinical trial, and I think the community keen for the clinical trial process to be sped up. It's a very slow process.
Well, yeah, I mean, you look at GDNF and finishing the phase 2, and everybody's eager to get to phase 3, right?
Yep. And there are discussions going on in the background here with regards to the possibility of running a phase 3 trial. But at the same time, we have other clinical trials going on for GDNF. There's a gene therapy clinical trial in California at the moment for GDNF. And we should know the results of that before the end of the year.
While we're talking about it, is there a really quick way you can explain what GDNF is for people who aren't aware?
GDNF is a protein that the brain makes. Its full name is glial cell line derived neurotrophic factor. And a neurotrophic factor is just a protein, a chemical that the brain makes to support cells in the brain. When they first discovered it, they found that it was very, very, very protective of dopamine neurons, these cells that are affected in Parkinson's. Everybody got very excited. They started a clinical trial. The first clinical trial was a bit of a disaster, but the second clinical trial gave remarkable results. And since then, it's been a bit of a roller coaster of clinical trial results. And this just recently, we've had a phase 2 clinical trial in Bristol, which was set up with the goal of being the definitive test for GDNF. The results suggest that the trial has not reached its primary endpoint.
It wasn't a total success.
No, it did not. It did not. GDNF did not show any major difference compared to a placebo-controlled treatment. But that's only on the clinical side. On the brain imaging side, the folks who received the GDNF did have interesting results. And so now the question is whether those interesting results justify continuing with the clinical trials program for GDNF.
Well, and I got to say, on the scienceofparkinsons.com website, you go into this in depth if people are interested in learning more about GDNF. I mean, you have it all laid out from the history, from the birth of it to now, and it's really insightful. So thanks for all the work you did putting that together. That couldn't have been easy.
Oh, you're welcome. Very welcome.
What are you looking forward to most at WPC 2019 in Kyoto?
So number one, it's being held in Kyoto, and Kyoto is just a beautiful city. It's a really, really spectacular Japanese city. If you've never been to Japan, Kyoto is definitely one of the cities to see. And the folks in Kyoto are wonderful. They're fantastic people. Number two, I just love the idea of the two communities coming together, the research community and the affected community, the Parkinson's community. I'm really excited by that idea. The discussions that are going to be had, the ideas that will come from those discussions. It's the anecdotal stuff. I think at the moment we have a very good idea on the research side about the natural history of Parkinson's, but it's the anecdotal stuff. It's that I can smell Parkinson's kind of comment that's going to stimulate future research. That really excites me.
That's cool.
It is. WPC is one of these situations where you can have the best researcher in the world sitting with somebody's mother or uncle, chit-chatting about these anecdotal situations, and just the possibility that that'll stimulate an inkling of the underlying biology of the condition. That just really, I find that very, very exciting.
It's like a petri dish of opportunity.
Exactly.
Aside from clothes and the normal stuff you pack, is there any must-have items that you're going to slip into your suitcase for Kyoto?
I think a healthy appetite. The food is sensational in Kyoto. One of my worries is that Japan can be very hot and humid in the summertime. So I'll be packing light. Before going to Japan, though, I'll be flying down to New Zealand to see my family and friends. My mother told me that Japan is halfway to New Zealand, so I don't really have a choice. I have to fly home. Turkey was halfway to New Zealand as far as my mother's concerned, so anywhere outside of England would be halfway home, so I'd have to make the trip. But it's an opportunity to get over the jet lag before venturing on to Kyoto, and I'm looking forward to it. I'll be giving a presentation at the Parkinson's New Zealand organization.
Simon, that's great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
Each episode of WPC 2019, I'm going to provide a Kyoto life hack, a tip, a cultural insight, etiquette advice, language lessons. It's an extra dosage travel guide to get us all better prepared for our trek in June. None of us want to offend anyone or be embarrassed, so James Heron, the executive director of the Japanese Canadian Cultural Center, has agreed to join us each episode. He's going to teach us a word or a phrase and provide some insight into the culture that we can expect. James, I like to eat, and Simon just told us to bring an appetite. My first question is, do I take my shoes off when I go to the restaurants?
It very much depends on the restaurant. More traditional places you will. Less traditional places for Western restaurants or a lot of different types of pubs, you don't have to, but it'll be very clear what you need to do when you enter the restaurant. When you do take your shoes off, there's usually a set of slippers that they'll give you, which will get you from there, from the entrance to the tatami mats in a traditional restaurant where you would just sit in your sock feet. Also, most traditional restaurants will have a separate set of slippers for the washrooms. So one of the classic blunders that we as foreigners make often is to put those toilet slippers on and to wear them back into the restaurant. So always make sure there's a lot of slipper changing in a traditional Japanese restaurant, but I think if you watch the people around you, you'll know what to do.
Well, and that may be challenging for some of the folks that are headed to the conference who have a hard time, controlling their body and stuff. Do you have to wear slippers?
You don't. As I said, the Japanese are very courteous, and if people have any sort of disadvantages in terms of being able to negotiate some spaces, the Japanese will be very forgiving and very supportive of what people need. So I wouldn't consider that a concern.
Great.
The last thing maybe I'll say with regards to food and drink is with regards to drinking, generally whether it's beer or sake, you don't pour for yourself.
Oh, okay.
People will pour for you, and you sort of pour for other people. And when people go to pour for you, you sort of just lift your glass a little bit and let them pour.
Okay.
Which has the disadvantage sometimes you lose a little bit of control in terms of how much you're going to drink. So if you sip your drink to the bottom, you can usually expect it to be refilled.
And what if you don't want to refill?
If you don't want to refill, usually you would just put your hand over the glass and say thank you or no thank you, and just ask for something that's non-alcoholic.
And what is the traditional toast or phrase that you might say before you take a drink?
The traditional toast is Kanpai.
Kanpai.
Kanpai, yeah. And that really means dry cup. So bottoms up, I guess. So.
Great. Thanks, James. We'll be sure to post these words, pronunciations, and cultural insights on the show notes. From Curious Cast and the World Parkinson Coalition, this is WPC 2019. Special thanks to David Sangster and Dr. Simon Stott, who served the Parkinson's community, and James Heron, all of whom joined us today. Visit WPC2019.org to learn about the upcoming 5th World Parkinson Congress. It's a global Parkinson's event that opens its doors to all members of the Parkinson's community, including those like me with the disease. Follow WPC on Twitter at World PD Congress. If you want to help spread the word about the podcast, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe for free. Search for WPC 2019 and When Life Gives You Parkinson's. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and everywhere you get your streaming audio. You can also listen at curiouscast.ca and WPC2019.org. You can also connect with me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just look up @ParkinsonsPod or email us, parkinsonspod@curiouscast.ca. WPC 2019 is written and produced by me, Larry Gifford. Dila Velazquez is our story producer and sound design by Rob Johnston. I look forward to seeing you in Kyoto. Matashita.
Canada may be known for its landscapes and friendly people, but beneath the surface lies a darker side of crime, history, and the paranormal. Since 2017, the award-winning Dark Poutine podcast has explored the shadowy corners of the Great White North and beyond, delivering chilling tales from a uniquely Canadian perspective. Hosted by Mike Brown and Matthew Stockton with over 300 episodes and fresh releases every Monday, Dark Poutine is your weekly ticket to the creepier side of Canada. Listen to Dark Poutine on Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts.